I worked on a movie called Full Metal Jacket, which Anton First, the production designer, was on. So I got to know Anton very well and had a good working relationship. And the next thing, I got a call from the studio, would I come in to have an interview with Tim Burton? Put a lot of suggestions to him. And the next thing I got is I got the call to star. Anton roughly sketches it, goes to the director, gets his consent, he feels it's going in the right direction, looks good, then passes it over to us and says, like, John, is this practical? Can we make it work? And that's when we come in, and the rest is history, really. A lot of pressure there because the time factor. We started late, and you can't buy time. So we were up against it for a long, long time. This had to be ready, that had to be ready. I had a team of 12 people. So nowadays, that team would be, on a Batman 1, would be 112 people. So we've done quite a feat, actually. 5 or 6 gadgets, didn't we? The steel gauntlet, the batarang, the spear gun. Problem with the gadgets, that they had to be small, lightweight, they had to fit on the belts. Everybody thinks it's fun, but it's about labour, cost, budgets, material, so it's not much fun till it actually starts to take shape, then you start to enjoy it. The spear gun was quite a good gadget because you had to lock it in, it had to spin, and we actually fired it many times in the film at people wrapping around their legs or round objects that Batman had to swing off. So that was quite a good gadget in the size of it, and it looked good. The steel gauntlet was interesting. It started off at 18 inches, which looked ridiculous, so we had to reduce it to 9, and that had to fire out steel cables, click onto the steel cable, and then escape in the museum. So that had to happen in one sequence. I was quite proud of that. The batarang was another practical object that had to open up, and he actually throws it around people's legs.
We tried to give the toys, so to speak, enough of a clunkiness and reality that it still brought it in the non-magical kind of realm, you know? That even though it's doing things that it really wouldn't do, you could kind of believe it could maybe do it.
The Joker's gadgets, you know, Jack used to come to our workshop and discuss all the gadgets, try them out, and make suggestions how he felt they should be used or changed. They weren't sophisticated or refined, I didn't think. You know, they were more fun gadgets. I mean, we had one telescopic boxing glove.
Can somebody tell me what kind of a world we live in?
The acid flower he had, the long gun, 1.5 meters long, he takes out of his trousers when the Batwing is attacking him. The Batwing, a lot of that was done model work by Derek Meddings.
The Batwing was something that sort of came off of the drawing board, the idea of it being the shape of the bat symbol. And Michael White, who was the storyboard artist, I think it was Michael that came up with the idea of, you know, the plane had to fly down the street and then had to turn around. And he came up with that great idea of it sort of coming up and stalling in front of the moon and then coming down. So you had that sort of moment where it was like silhouetted in front of the moon.
We had to put the Batwing on a gimbal, a large gimbal, to get the movement back and forwards and dipping, and so like you'd flying an aircraft. Then we had rockets in the back wing, which had to be practical, a laser gun, and machine guns too in either side of the wings. I was proud of working on Batman 1, and I liked Tim Burton very much as a director. I thought he had some very good ideas. Yeah, I think we've done a good job.
Films, and I loved film scoring. So suddenly I had a chance to kind of dabble in this, and I wanted to do more, but I was in a band and touring and doing albums.
I used to go see his band before I was doing movies and clubs, and just always felt like his music was very filmic.
So after Beetlejuice, I got a call from Tim saying, I'm doing this thing, you might be interested in it. And he sent me the Dark Knight comics. That was much more up my alley than what I had known of the original Batman comics as a kid. And then there was a point where they went into production, and I flew out to London and went out in the set.
The very first film he did, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, came out of the blue, kind of. He was looking for a low profile, and this one was like a little higher profile than he wanted. And he took me along as a safety net.
I really got my initial ideas from walking around at night on set of Gotham. The Batman theme, I just looked for something that had the components that could be mysterious, that can be dark, that could also get fun, and can also have a driving heroism too, always keeping that dark side to it.
He did come up with a good one. You know, that's hard to do, to come up with what the Batman character is, kind of dark but adventure and moving and operatic, all those things at once.
I wasn't trying to come up with something that people would remember so much as something that fit the footage. You know, I always just think of what plays this footage, and I needed something heroic and simple. And in that simplicity, you have building blocks, and you can use different building blocks and expand on them. So I wasn't necessarily consciously blocking it out that way, but my instincts were old-fashioned instincts in that regard. Especially any film of this genre, you're going to have different places to go with your heroes and with your villains.
The pen is truly mightier than the sword.
Joker was really fun, but there wasn't as much to grab onto because he wasn't scored as heavily. There actually isn't a lot of music under the Joker.
Honey, you'll never believe what happened to me today.
Oh.
This really fun waltz that I got to write for him during this crazy sequence, that was really fun. Why his kind of weird, twisted waltz? I don't know. I mean, I always love writing the villain's music.
In that moment, you know, that kind of foolishness, now I've shot him, I think I'll shoot him again. I think I'll do it. You know, I mean, I'll always love that moment in that picture.
What a day.
The Joker was just fun. Most of the work of Batman was, establishing the tone of the movie and Gotham and everything else.
Let's go.
Shields.
I did what I always do with Danny. I was his orchestrator and responsible for making sure what he thought he was writing was what we got out of the orchestra. Part of Danny's process, to me, is never done until we've recorded and put it in.
My most fun moment actually was recording it and actually hearing the music coming together in the studio. And then there was a point where John Peters started picking up his cell phone, turning it on, holding it up to the speakers, and he'd be having people back home in LA say, check this out, listen to this. And I remember him coming up and saying, Danny, we're gonna do a separate soundtrack album for just the score. I figured this is producer, hot air, and he did. I don't understand what makes Batman popular. I didn't expect Batman to do really well when I was working on it.
My balloons.
These things always surprise me. To me, they're movies, they're fun, they're interesting, but what makes them a cultural phenomenon, I haven't a clue. Always in that genre, you get to pack a lot of your best wallop into the last 12, 15 minutes of the movie. So there was a lot of stuff in the end that I was pleased about that, was big and had some grandeur. It was like a level of intensity that I never could have comprehended in my life. And yet, it's been rewarding.